up, everybody? This is your girl, Angel Ghost Girl, and right now we are reading Paranormal, Ghosts, Aliens, and the Unexplained, Haunted Grounds, The Mystery of Bigfoot, Witches of Past and Present, which look like, which looks like that. Oh. Yet, even as late as the 12th century, descriptions of witches and witchcraft were not yet totally negative. Even in Christian cultures, around 1150 CE, a British cleric named Geoffrey of Monmouth composed an epic poem titled Vita Merlini, Life of Merlin. The poet contains the first mention of one of English literature's most famous witches, Morgan Le Fay. She is one of 9 magical sisters living on the island of Avalon. A beautiful woman, Le Fay is capable of shape-shifting and flying, and she uses her powers to revive King Arthur. Later in the 12th century, a French poet wrote the romantic poem Ecce and Ide, hopefully I'm saying that right, which includes Le Fay, who is described as a benevolent healer. In the 13th century, however, multiple authors presented Le Fay as a sinister temptress, with her becoming King Arthur's nemesis by the 15th century. English author Thomas Molloy's The Death of Arthur had stripped Le Fay of any noble qualities. The change in Le Fay's character reflected the Catholic Church's increasingly aggressive attempt to stamp out witchcraft, part of a larger crusade against heresy. Beginning in the late 12th century, the Church created a series of inquiries and tribulations to investigate and punish heretics. The first of these, the so-called Apostle defeated, more typical was influence in priest Thomas' statement that sorcery and magic were sinful and heretical. Aquinas' influences over the church was found. Pope John took an especially hard line against witches in 1320. He instructed inquirers in southern France to proceed against witches and sorcerers by whatever means available, which are chronically assigned to you concerning the proceedings against heretics. 6 years later, he officially declared witchcraft a heresy, making it a target of wrath. I'm going to read this in here. A priest named Urbain Grandier was accused of witchcraft and executed after falling afoul of a local bishop. Stories like his are not uncommon in the mass of executions that took place in the 16th and 17th centuries. Opposite the prescription of Morgan Le Fay, shown here in a critical 1860 painting by British author John Rodham Spencer, Stanhope has changed along with attitudes on witchcraft. And here's a picture. A little bit closer. Really see it. Witch hunts. It was not until the 15th century, however, that witch hunting really came into its own. Beginning in 1428, a series of witch trials that eventually claimed approximately 400 lives began in the Varus region of current-day Switzerland. For 30 years, the region had an office of inquisition to investigate wilderness. In the summer of 1428, this morphed into investigating claims of witchcraft when several local notables demanded it. Allegedly, witches were flying through the air on chairs, transforming into wolves and attacking their neighbors, cows, and even the bodies of children. Under establishment procedures, a person could be arrested when 3 or 4 neighbors accused him or her of being a witch. If accused by 5 or more people, the alleged witch was not only arrested but liable to be tortured, sometimes to death. Those convicted of witchcraft were executed, usually by being pushed into a burning stake. By this time, witchcraft had been primarily associated with women for a couple of centuries. Aquinas had viewed witchcraft as a primarily through note entirely a female activity tied to women's. Sexuality. While a letter written at Pope John requested in 1320 distinguished between sorcerers men and witches women, in 1437, as various witchcraft trials were going on, an anonymous inquirer wrote Aries Gazorium, which described in detail the black magic rituals of alleged witches. The document repeats many of the charges leveled against witches in various, particularly charges of cannibalism, but also describes in lurid detail the way in which the devil seduces Christian women and turns them to witchcraft. At about the same time, a lay magistrate named Claude issued a Magorum et Maleficium errors, which recounted supposedly methods of temptation used by female witches. As a result of these and other outrages on the basis of canon law, claimed the right of civilized authority to intervene in those cases that involve corporal punishment and confiscation of the property of the convicted. Apparently, civil authorities responded less enthusiastically than the church would have liked. In 1484, a Dominican inquirer named Heinrich Kramer was expelled from the city of Innsbruck in the Tyrol region of current-day Australia after trying to investigate claims of witchcraft. At Kramer's behest, Pope Innocent, is that really his name? Issued summus desiring with supreme ardor, which authorized inquiries investigation of witchcraft to proceed to the corrections, imprisonment, and punishment of alleged witches, and threatened any hindering Kramer's work with excommunicating, suspension, interdict, and other still more terrible sentences and penalties. As maybe 2 years later, Kramer included Summaris in his Malleus Maleficium, that's not even English, Hammer of the Witches, the best known and most important treatise on witchcraft. Kramer claimed that women were more likely to be witches than men, going on to assert, what else a woman but a foe to friend, an unescapable punishment, a necessary evil, a natural temptation, a desirable calamity, a domestic danger, a delectable determinant, an evil of nature, painted with fair colors. The Duncan stool was used to tell if someone was the Duncan is called the Duncan stool. They spelled it wrong. The Duncan stool was used to tell if someone was a witch by seeing if they floated. It was also used to elicit confessions, opposite witches shown with their familiars black cats on their iconic mode of transportation, the broom. So there's some more pictures right here. So if you like videos like this, then like and subscribe and comment into the comments below. And until next time, everybody, sweet nightmares or sweet dreams.